Today, we're looking into that time Derek Hale died on Teen Wolf.
Yes. We're looking at the first time he died.
Derek.
We've got some interesting new research from Paul from Teen Wolf News. He's been looking into season 4 and specifically Derek Hale's character arc where he lost all his werewolf abilities and eventually died. By cross-referencing official canon from the official Teen Wolf wiki with the Florentine Codex.
Which is essentially a massive 16th century encyclopedia of Aztec culture.
Exactly, Aztec culture and mythology. So Paul argues that Derek losing his powers wasn't some random biological fluke. It was a highly orchestrated divine intervention.
Wow. But to get to the ancient gods, we first have to talk about Kate Argent.
That's right, Derek. And if seeing me is a surprise, watch this.
Yeah, it was kind of a fun start. Kate Argent stuffed Derek in that Aztec temple easy bake oven and scrambled his memories and forced him to shapeshift into a confused but still broody teen.
We're just gonna wait here for Scott. We're gonna sit quietly, and we're not gonna call or talk to anyone.
Do I talk to you?
No.
Good.
Fine.
He's gonna talk to him.
Ow!
I brought extra. You guys hungry?
Yeah.
No, we're not hungry.
No, I'm starving.
Neither of us are hungry. Thanks, though.
What's your name?
Miguel. It's my cousin Miguel. From Mexico. So.
The audacious sass of it all.
Right.
Kate?
Hey, handsome.
Yeah.
She put him in the Aztec, what do we call it?
Or maybe call it the Aztec Youth Chamber.
We don't know the exact process Kate used, but whatever she did triggered a full-body physical shift.
Which really isn't that big of a deal. I mean, his mom, Laura, and Malia could all shift into a smaller form, but the temple did more than just change the size and apparent age.
Right, that whole process mixed up Derek's memories real good. She needed Derek to forget that he hated her so that she could smooch him and be all age inappropriate.
Tell me if you remember this.
That wasn't really her goal, but it was an interesting narrative choice, to say the least.
Yeah.
The real reason Kate dehydrated Derek is so he could help her get this useless MacGuffin from the Hale Vault.
Right, the Triskelion.
Yeah.
We get inside the vault. We get the Triskelion. And then everything goes back to normal.
See, part of Kate's malformed werewolf situation was that her were-jaguar form is basically always out of control. That's what they showed us.
Hey! You okay in there?
Just a second.
Hey!
Let me have a minute!
Open it! You okay?
And her trying to gain control seemed to be her only motivation. Well, that and the aforementioned smooching.
Please, I beg you, no more. That is enough of that.
Okay, moving on.
She can't control the ship. She wants to learn.
So she wants Derek to teach her?
No. She wants the Triskelion. All this complication just to get your hands on that little piece of junk. Turn it over, go ahead. There's a scrape on the back where it used to say made in China.
So we had a really overcomplicated plan to get what turned out to be a completely useless thing.
But it was fun to watch, especially when Derek got punched back to adulthood.
It was a very dramatic physical correction.
It really was.
But this berserker fight was also when Derek started the process of dying right before our eyes.
Yeah.
Over the course of season 4, he went from werewolf to normal human and then died, and Paul blames all that on Tezcatlipoca. And the real-world history of the Aztec jaguar god backs up his theory pretty well.
It really does.
See, when I first got away from the Calaveras, I had no idea where to go. But something kept pulling me here, to the temple of Tezcatlipoca.
So imagine Tezcatlipoca, unworshipped for nearly 500 years, mostly forgotten, except for when some dusty old scholar opens a dusty old codex.
Just dormant for centuries.
Then suddenly, he feels something stirring in one of his temples.
When I got here, I found the berserkers waiting for me. They helped me survive. But I found out I could not only control the berserkers, but I could create them.
He looks down from Teotihuacan and sees a jaguar woman building temple guardians from bone in the old way.
Just like the old days.
He must have been thrilled.
Yeah, thrilled until he catches a whiff of another god in his temple.
Because the werewolf spark comes from Zeus. That has to sting a little. 500 years forgotten, and suddenly there's divine power in his temple, and it isn't his.
Then he takes a look at the jaguar woman and sees she is not his either. It has the same foreign divine spark, just twisted to look like him.
Oh, wow. I mean, that is a massive mythological insult. Tezcatlipoca is not simply an Aztec jaguar god.
No, he is one of the great powers of the Mexican religious world.
Yeah.
Invisible, pervasive, intimately connected with rulership, fate, conflict, instability, and reversals of fortune.
The Florentine Codex describes him in wonderfully ominous terms. He brought discord among people, and he brought down all things. Yet the very same passage says that sometimes he bestowed wealth, valor, dignity, and rulership.
In other words, Tez is fickle.
That is the right word. He can raise you up, he can knock you down, he can apparently do both because the mood strikes him.
Yep. And at this moment, seeing alien power playing in his sandbox, the mood strikes him to mess with these interlopers.
It just so happens that Tezcatlipoca has a very special ritual that will mess with them and get him a blood sacrifice, the likes of which he's not seen in centuries.
Like blood. That doesn't make sense. I should have caught the scent before we walked in.
So Derek is losing his werewolf abilities one by one throughout season 4.
Why aren't you healing?
Some wounds take longer.
And some leave scars. But not for people like you. So what's going on?
Maybe I'm just tired.
Derek, show me your eyes.
You just saw them.
Show me your real eyes. Okay, now why don't you tell me what's really going on?
And according to Paul, the loss of power and status is all part of the jaguar god's ritual called Toxcatl.
The festival of Toxcatl centered on a young man chosen to serve as the Ixiptla, the living image of Tezcatlipoca.
Living image, so they dressed and painted him up like Tez.
Not just that, they treated him like a god, too. For about a year, he lived in what's described as divine splendor, adorned like the god and adored by the people like he is a god.
Connect the dots, how that ties into Derek in season 4.
That comes the end of the festival when all the signs of divine status are taken away. The body paint, the fancy clothes, ornaments, servants, musicians, companions, each are removed from the chosen one during his last 20 days. The signs of his divine status were taken away until he stands as he was before. It's an abrupt transformation from the exaltation of a god back to being a mere human to dying as a sacrifice to Tezcatlipoca.
It sounds like a convincing comparison when you lay it out like that, all the god stuff taken away one by one.
It parallels Derek's fall from born werewolf to mere mortal.
And his ultimate death.
Yeah.
It's just a graze, but make sure it doesn't get infected. That's probably something you've never had to worry about before. So it's everything then. No glowing eyes, no healing.
Smell, hearing, speed. Everything.
Strength?
I could still want to fight.
Wait, if the whole werewolf thing is canonically a Zeus curse,
It is. I mean, we get the story of Zeus and the first werewolves from Gerard in season 3, so we have to assume Zeus is real in this universe.
okay, Zeus is real, so how does Tezcatlipoca mess with and seemingly remove a curse that originally came from the king of the gods?
First, he didn't actually remove the curse, as we'll see later. And second, Tezcatlipoca is a Zeus-level god.
A Zeus-level god.
People tend to dismiss these younger gods in deference to the old guys of the classical Western pantheon. According to Bernardino de Sahagún, Tezcatlipoca is just as powerful, revered, and feared as Zeus was in the Hellenic tradition.
Bernardino de Sahagún, he wrote the Florentine Codex.
Compiled would be a better word. He collected all the lore from the region so fellow missionaries could understand the local religions and figure out ways to convert the Aztecs to Christianity. But he did his job too well with the vivid descriptions of Mexica gods, so it became a forbidden book and never got to the missionaries.
And that is a fascinating story, but that's a story for another day. For our purposes here, the Codex is the way European audiences eventually learned about these new world gods.
Yes, and the Codex introduced Tezcatlipoca to those readers as another Jupiter.
Ah, I see. Jupiter's the Roman version of Zeus.
Exactly. Tezcatlipoca is in Sakano's framing, another Zeus, a supreme, powerful god with authority over human fortunes. So he had more than enough power to mess with the werewolf curse.
He had all the juice necessary to run the Toxcatl on Derek, removing each of his divine gifts and sacrificing him as a mortal.
Derek is attacked, falls, and dies right there on the sacred ground above the temple.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Tezcatlipoca gets his blood offering spilled directly in his territory.
Right. I get that Tezcatlipoca is capricious.
Fickle. He's fickle.
Right. So I see some entertainment value for a nearly forgotten god in toying with a hunky and broody human. But what did he actually get out of killing Derek?
Well, for the Aztec pantheon, one of functions of human sacrifice was to nourish the gods.
Nourish as in food.
Tezcatlipoca gotta eat.
And Tez hasn't had a proper meal in centuries.
Exactly. And Derek isn't exactly your average offering either. He's a supernatural warrior carrying the deep old power of another god.
So a Zeus-powered sacrifice.
Right, and that fact would make him even more attractive to the jaguar god. Historian Michelle Graulich argued that some Aztec sacrifices like Toxcatl represented the god's own ritual death through a human stand-in.
I'm following.
And those self-sacrifices were more powerful in that they didn't just nourish. According to Graulich, those special sacrifices also rejuvenated or revitalized the god.
Tezcatlipoca was effectively sacrificing himself, and Derek's werewolf spark makes him an unusually potent stand-in.
Yeah, for the first time in 500 years, Tezcatlipoca saw a chance to get fully rejuvenated, so he took it.
And speaking of getting revitalized,
You're dead.
Derek's death fits neatly into Paul's sacrifice theory. What about Derek's return?
It's not complicated. Paul says that after Tezcatlipoca got his ritual killing, he was just done.
That makes sense. The sacrifice is complete, he is rejuvenated, so the jaguar god is just done. But that still doesn't explain how Derek got back up. From all appearances, he was just a regular human at the time of death.
When Tezcatlipoca withdrew his influence, Paul suggests the interference suppressing Derek's supernatural abilities was gone too.
So they just kick back in.
They just kick back in. We've seen it before.
If Zeus curses you, you stay cursed.
Even death doesn't remove the werewolf curse.
We have seen it before. Peter in Season 2, Kate in Season 4, Scott in Season 5.
The spark managed to bring them all back after they were really most sincerely dead.
Wizard of Oz reference, nice.
Of course, Derek didn't just come back, he came back
Better.
evolved. Derek says he was evolving.
Evolved.
Yeah.
That has become fan shorthand for werewolves that can fully shift into a real wolf. Derek seemed to evolve in just the few minutes he was dead. I mean, he went from fully dead human to fully evolved wolf in just a few minutes of screen time.
He did, and the explanation is really kind of beautiful.
Hit me.
Paul says, based on official canon and his interviews with Teen Wolf creator Jeff Davis, that the process of losing his abilities allowed him to feel the wolf parts of him more clearly.
Jeff did say that those who can go full wolf had reached a kind of balance between the supernatural animal side and human side of the werewolf.
Exactly. Derek was born a werewolf. Even before he could control them, his abilities were healing him, making him faster, stronger, and improving his senses above baseline human. As he lost each of those abilities over the course of the season, as they were suppressed by either the temple's power or Tezcatlipoca's active interference, he felt the absence.
He could only see how the puzzle pieces fit together once they were removed, exposing their shapes.
He got a unique perspective, and once that side of him returned, he reached that necessary level of understanding to fully control the wolf.
That is kind of beautiful. His mother and sister only reached that level over several years. Derek's path was a dramatic crash course in attaining spiritual balance.
It really is. It completely recontextualizes his entire journey.
It really does.
If you ever thought his arc was just random bad luck, you can see now it was a grueling divine trial.
Yeah, it definitely makes you look at the whole supernatural landscape differently.